Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vikings Central podcast. We have another episode coming your way today. Can't wait to get this one started, but if you are listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and turn on that bell for notifications if you are able. It'd mean the world to us. All right, guys, we have a talking point here today. We're going to talk a little bit about, of course, you guessed it, Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins, a lot to be talked about in the next few weeks. He's got that giant cap hit, that money that's going to be due here in a few weeks or so. So the Minnesota Vikings really got to figure out what they are going to do at the quarterback position. There's plenty of different ways they can go. They can look in free agency for a bridge quarterback. They can look to the draft for the quarterback of the future, or they can simply stick with Kirk Cousins, look for an extension, or just keep him at that current cap number, which I think is probably the least likely thing that they will do. But all options are on the table right now at this point for the Minnesota Vikings. If they do decide to explore that trade route, I have a handful of teams here I kind of want to talk about. Where could the Vikings ship Kirk Cousins here in the future if they were looking to make a trade? And I got 4 teams down that we're going to kind of talk about, kind of dig a little deeper, and see if any of them make any sense for Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I think a majority of people know that Kirk Cousins is a quarterback. He just gets paid an ungodly amount of money for a team that needs to create cap space. I mean, you have to sign your draft picks here in a few months. We have a lot of cap room to open up, and it starts at the quarterback, and I know there's other restructures that are going to happen. Probably some releases are going to happen with veteran players that you wouldn't expect. So it's going to be an interesting few months here into the offseason for the Vikings with new head coach Kevin O'Connell and new GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. All right, guys, the first team we are going to look at is a team we got our GM from, the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns got Baker Mayfield on contract for one more year. He's due to make about $19 million. So I know Mary Kay Calvert, who's a beat writer, reporter over there for the Cleveland Browns, did talk about the possibility right away as soon as we hired Kwesi that it could be a possibility that Kirk Cousins and the Cleveland Browns could make a connection there. So if Kwesi wants to talk to Andrew Berry about that possibility, I think it could be an interesting situation. Cleveland's got upcoming receiver and Donovan Peoples-Jones, that big possession type receiver. Pretty much throw it up and he'll come down with it. You got Austin Hooper. You got 2 tremendous running backs in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You got a fantastic offensive line. I think Kirk Cousins could thrive in that offense. It doesn't make sense for the Browns. Baker Mayfield had an off year last year, but he was dealing with injuries all year long. So he probably wasn't playing up to his greatest potential the year before, first year with Kevin Stefanski. He did have a pretty damn solid year. So is Cleveland ready to move on from Baker Mayfield? I'm not sure. Are they going to just want the last year to play out with Baker? I could see that being a possibility. But if they want to try to take that next step and get a very grounded, very experienced veteran quarterback, Kirk Cousins might be there for the taking. They would have to probably give up some draft capital, maybe their first-round pick or second-round pick. But, it's just all depends on what Cleveland would want to do if they actually had any interest in Kirk Cousins at all. Now, for the Vikings, I think, it depends on the draft capital. Are you going to want to go forward with Baker Mayfield? I think you could, rent Baker Mayfield for 1 year and look to draft your guy of the future this year or next. Maybe get... If you don't want anyone in this year's draft, because the draft class is pretty weak, I mean, there's only 1 or 2 guys that are probably going to be maybe instant starters and probably, middle of the road starters. They might want to wait till next year's draft to do anything on that end. But if they had Baker this year, they could just sign another bridge quarterback next year to pair with their rookie quarterback then. So I think that's an interesting team to look at. But do I think it's all that likely? I think there's a chance, but there's a chance with everything right now. It's very early on in the offseason, so there's a lot to play out yet. Now, the next team I want to talk about, and I know Benjamin Albright on Twitter kind of shot this down. And, a lot of these teams are going to probably wait to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, because maybe some of these teams might take a swing at Aaron Rodgers. And there's already been reports that some trade offers have been on the table. And I'm guessing one of those trade offers is from Denver. Now, Denver's the next team I'm talking about. George Patton came from the Vikings last year, new GM with the Broncos, very smart guy. Is he a fan of Kirk Cousins? I'm not 100% sure. I think there's some respect there, and I think he won't have an issue with Kirk Cousins being the Denver Broncos quarterback. And then you also got Nathaniel Hackett, who has been heard saying that he is a fan of Kirk Cousins. So there's some connections there. Then obviously got Clint Kubiak as the quarterback's coach over there as well. So very interesting on that end. Some connections there. Is there anything more than connections there? Do they actually want to make a play for Kirk Cousins? I'm not sure. It could be expected because there is those connections, but Denver would have to give up, against some draft capital. Who are you going to send back in a trade? Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock would be an interesting piece. Big arm player. He doesn't take care of the ball all that well, but I think Drew Lock, getting coached up by Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips, would be interesting. So it'd be interesting to see, if anything comes about with Denver and Minnesota in any trade talks, but I'm not quite sure that will happen. The next team I want to talk about, and everyone knows this has been talked about for the last 2 years, and last offseason it was talked about. It's been talked about a little bit this offseason as well. The San Francisco 49ers. Now the 49ers, they're in a weird spot. They're a good team. I mean, they got to the NFC Championship game. So obviously they're a good team. They have a great roster. Jimmy Garoppolo just can't get them over the hump. And it sounds like he's probably going to get traded. There was a report yesterday or the day before that they might keep Garoppolo. They don't think Trey Lance is ready, but I think that's some smokescreen, trying to up the trade value for Jimmy Garoppolo. Do I want Jimmy Garoppolo here? Not necessarily. You'd have to attach some picks to that, a la Matthew Stafford and the Jared Goff trade, where Kevin O'Connell was involved there. So we know Kyle Shanahan is a huge fan of Kirk Cousins. He's been open about it. He said, I want a Kirk here. But, circumstances, Jimmy Garoppolo was already there, and it didn't work out. So I think that's always a team to keep an eye out on. It's another team that's probably going to wait for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision. But I think that's an interesting development there, that they could be a team that could have interest in our current Minnesota Vikings quarterback. Now, the dark horse team I'm going to talk about here, not a lot of connections, not the greatest draft capital. They don't have a first-round pick this year. It's the Indianapolis Colts. And obviously they're going to move on from Carson Wentz. If they just straight out release him, maybe they can build up a trade a little bit. Do I want Carson Wentz here? I'm a bigger fan of Carson Wentz than most people. Is he reckless? Does he get injured? Yes. I think he is tough. He just goes through a lot of injuries. He gets beat up. He holds onto the ball too long sometimes. He tries to make plays that he just probably can't make all the time. And I think it's another guy I think would be interesting to see Kevin O'Connell coach up a little bit. Clean some of that stuff up. I think Kevin O'Connell's a very smart guy. He helps these guys get he was talking about quiet-minded, just, be calm, cool, collected, and those big moments, especially third down throws, fourth quarter drives, game-winning drives, and obviously last year, or this last few weeks for Kevin O'Connell in the Super Bowl. So I think that's interesting there. Like I said, they don't have a first-round pick, so they'd probably have to look for future draft compensation as well, like the 2023 draft. But I don't know. Those four teams kind of interest me, are kind of the teams in mind that I have. And then obviously Carolina is in there too, but I don't see that happening. You'd have to get pick 6 from them, I think, and I don't think that's going to work out. And I don't want Sam Darnold. I do not like Sam Darnold as a quarterback. Wildly inconsistent for me. And no, thank you. No, thank you. He just doesn't do it for me. So what do you guys think? Where do you think Kirk could get shipped. If he does, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but these are just a few possibilities that I can see. Again, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening in. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you for listening. If you're on YouTube, again, please hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and turn that bell for notifications. Thank you guys for watching. This is the Viking Central Podcast. We'll see you in the next one.